Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here. Right on time. See lots of folks flowing in, so we'll give everybody just a few minutes to get settled. As a reminder, today's webinar is for local governments and service providers and other folks that are directly providing that education and outreach materials to communities. If you are a producer, you are always welcome to hang around and listen in, but you would not be able to access the education and outreach portal. So it might not be super helpful today, but you are always welcome to stay around. Otherwise, feel free to hop off. You won't hurt our feelings there. And it looks like we have leveled off a little bit with the number of folks popping in a couple minutes after the hour. So I will turn it over to Taylor and we can get started.
All right, thanks, Alex. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are thrilled to have you here as we continue to explore the Education and Outreach portal. For those of you who are new to these webinars, we have recordings of our introductory sessions from last year, the batched educational materials review webinars from earlier this year, as well as the first part of the webinar series for the Education and Outreach portal. If you're interested in a deep dive into how we developed the educational materials available in the portal or learning more about onboarding into the portal, you can watch these recordings at your convenience. Lydia will drop a link in the chat for you now, so feel free to bookmark that page and check out any recordings you may have missed. The purpose of this webinar is to provide local governments and service providers with information about the Education and Outreach portal. Today, we'll be diving deeper into the portal, specifically focusing on how to customize the educational materials available to you, building on the onboarding process we covered in our previous portal webinar. All right, here is an overview of our agenda for today. We'll kick things off with introductions, then we'll review what the Education and Outreach portal is and how it ties into the educational materials we've been working on. We'll do a quick summary of the May 20th webinar, which again was recorded. Then we'll explore the educational materials, including navigating to and downloading them, how to customize dynamic templates in the portal, review the project section, and discuss CAA's printing process. Lastly, we'll review the FAQ section and end user support again while leaving some time for questions at the end. Before we get started, let's go over some logistics for today. The chat is open and we'd love for attendees to let us know who's here. However, if you have a question, please use the Q&A function. This will help us address questions as we go along, and we have a lot to cover today. We have many subject matter experts here to help answer your questions. So again, for any questions or comments, please use the Q&A section, which is separate from the chat. We have a lot of team members on the call today, and I'll first hand it over to Alex with Circular Action Alliance to begin our introductions.
Hi again, everybody. By this point, you've probably been on several webinars and these faces should look pretty familiar to you. We did add a new team member, but we don't have them on this slide yet because their first day is today. So that's Elizabeth G., who's going to be CAA Oregon's contracts manager. So many of you might start receiving emails from Elizabeth. And if you see her around, say hello. And speaking of contracts, I want to just remind folks that the primary funding agreement is still needed from many communities. So check with your team and see if you have had that signed and submitted. And if you haven't, try to get that in ASAP because that is the key to receiving funding, reimbursement, and then accessing the other portal, which we're developing, the service provider portal. So as always, these are the folks you can reach out to with questions if you have any, or if you need some guidance on moving forward. And you can find contact information as well as information on those primary funding agreements on circularactionalliance.org/Oregon. Taylor, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thanks, Alex. As Alex mentioned, I'm sure a lot of you have been attending these webinars, so you are all probably familiar with the Recycling Partnership. But for anyone who is not, the Recycling Partnership, we pride ourselves on being a team of experts, practitioners, and thought leaders with real-world experience who are delivering on our mission of building a better recycling system. And we have several folks with us again today to help us run the show and answer questions that you'll be interacting with. With that, I'll hand it over to Lydia to introduce herself.
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Lydia Keenan. I'm the Strategy and Innovation Manager with the Recycling Partnership. So I'm the project manager for the Education Outreach Portal, and I also support the strategy and development of our other digital tools at the partnership. And I will hand it off to Kevin to introduce himself.
Thanks, Lydia. Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin Goolsby. I'm the Data and Analyst Coordinator with the Recycling Partnership, and I work closely with the Solutions Hub, and I'll answer any questions you all have in the chat and be engaging with you in the chat. And with that, I'll pass it off to Taylor.
Thanks, Kevin. Hello again, everyone. My name is Taylor Sorensen, and I am a Community Program Manager for the Recycling Partnership. I'm here on behalf of CAA to assist with the education and outreach efforts, specifically to help share about the Education and Outreach Portal that is located on the Recycling Partnership's Recycling Program Solutions Hub. All right, I see some of you are already in the chat introducing yourselves, and we'd love to get to know each of you a bit more and learn who is with us today. So please let us know who you are, what community or organization you're representing, your role. And for fun, why don't we share what our favorite food is to eat in the summer now that we are into June? I can kick us off. You already know who I am and what organization I'm with, but I will say my favorite food to eat in the summer is anything grilled. I'm located in Wisconsin, so I'll have to go with probably a bratwurst. Awesome. I see some more chats coming in. Thank you so much for introducing yourselves and letting us know who is here with us today. Now let's dive in. We'll start with an overview of what the Education and Outreach Portal is and how it relates to the engagement work you've done so far. As a reminder, if you want more detail on the educational materials and the process of how they were developed, make sure to watch the recordings of our previous education and outreach webinars. If you missed them, Lydia will drop a link to find the recordings in the chat one more time for folks who may not have been able to join right on the hour. All right, here we have a high-level overview of what the Education and Outreach Portal is and its purpose. Before I dive in, I do want to acknowledge that in Oregon, there are quite a few portals in use. So for the sake of clarity, whenever I refer to the portal, I'm specifically talking about the Education and Outreach, or the E&O Portal. As you likely know, CAA and the partnership have been collaborating with you to create customizable education and outreach materials specifically for Oregon residents. The goal of the E&O Portal is to support and streamline outreach efforts conducted by local governments and service providers in Oregon. It enables you to customize educational materials based on local conditions and distribute them through existing channels, ensuring that all stakeholders have access to high-quality, customizable resources. The portal is built within the partnership's Recycling Program Solutions Hub and is available to Oregon local governments and service providers. As I just mentioned, the portal is built on the partnership's Recycling Program Solutions Hub, also known as the RPS Hub. This is a review from last time, but it is important to emphasize how the RPS Hub leverages extensive data to enhance the portal's functionality. The RPS Hub compiles community data from several sources, including the U.S. Census 2022 American Community Survey, public recycling program websites, state recycling information, and from verified community representatives. By utilizing this comprehensive data, the portal allows you to easily customize educational materials based on your accepted materials lists, ensuring that your outreach efforts are both accurate and effective. Additionally, the portal's integration with the RPS Hub simplifies the process of accessing and updating community profile information, making it easier for local governments and service providers to manage their educational materials. All right, now that we've reviewed some background on what the Education and Outreach Portal is, I want to quickly recap the rest of what was covered on our May 20th webinar. During the May 20th webinar, we introduced the E&O Portal, explaining its purpose and emphasizing the portal's role in supporting customizable educational materials for Oregon local governments and service providers. The onboarding process included steps to create an account and request access to community profiles with an explanation of different user roles, including owner, editor, and viewers, and their permissions. We discussed how to review, update, and verify community profile information, highlighting the importance of accurate data for effective outreach. We also covered accessing educational materials, distinguishing between static and dynamic templates, and the steps to download and customize these materials. Additionally, we navigated to the FAQ page for common questions and provided contact information for end user support. If you've already been in the portal and are working on requesting access or verifying your data and have come across any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. We're happy to help. Additionally, if you need to update information for more than 10 communities and are running into any challenges, please reach out to us. We can provide solutions to bulk edit profile information if needed. For those of you who missed this webinar, please go back and watch it after today, as gaining access and verifying your community data is critical to use the portal to its full capabilities. Lydia will link the recording in the chat for anyone who wasn't here at the top of the hour. All right. As I mentioned earlier today, we'll delve deeper into the educational materials and learn how to customize the templates directly within the portal. To begin, let's refresh our memory on where to find these materials within the portal. So once you are logged into the E&O portal, you'll want to navigate to the Educational Materials tab in the menu bar. This tab is located right below the Your Communities tab. I will guide us step by step on how to locate and select the materials you would like to download and customize. In the Educational Materials tab, you will see a list of all the educational materials that we have created over the past year. There are 19 materials in total that are available in 12 languages, including English. As a reminder, some materials will be customizable within the portal, while others will be available for download. All materials will be visible in this tab. The static educational materials are downloadable files that can be edited depending on the file format, such as press releases, newsletter, articles, and truly static assets like the Community Education and Outreach Playbook. Dynamic templates, on the other hand, can be customized using the template editor within the E&O portal. Templates have editable fields that are pre-populated based on your accepted materials list. These templates include brochures, posters, mailers, and more. Here is a complete list of the educational materials developed over the past year through collaboration between CAA, the Recycling Partnership, and your teams. These materials reflect your input and feedback throughout the process. Materials that are marked with an asterisk can be customized using the template editor within the E&O portal. The Recycle On Oregon logo suite was also just added today and is available now as a static download. Last time we focused on how to access and download static materials, and today we'll be focusing on dynamic templates. But before we get started on that, let's do a quick refresh on how to download static materials. Any educational material listed in the bottom section of the page that does not have a customize button will be considered a static material. These materials can be downloaded onto your computer and then can be edited outside of the portal or used as is. To get started with accessing the static files, simply click the green download button. Clicking the download button will open a new page where you can select the language of the file you would like to download. The type of collateral will determine the file format. For instance, a press release will be in a doc file, whereas a cart label will be a PDF. Depending on the educational material, you may also be able to download the files in different languages. The dynamic templates are also located within the same Educational Materials tab. You will know if an educational material is dynamic and can be customized in the portal's template editor because it will have a customize button. The template editor will be available for the USCL Recycling Guide, info card, and brochure mailers, OOPS and material cart tags, the door hanger, bill insert, poster, or large sign. Currently, the USCL guide is the only template available for customization in the template editor. By June 16th, the rest of these materials will also be available to edit. In the meantime, you can use the download button to access InDesign files for these materials to edit on your local computer. If you do not have access to InDesign but need to edit those materials before June 16th, please reach out to CAA at oregon.recycleon@circularaction.org. They can assist you with those edits, and Lydia will put that email in the chat for easy access. Let's get started on customizing the templates in the E&O portal. Okay, we've navigated to the educational materials page where all of the materials are available. Before we dive into the template editor, I want to highlight something important. You might notice that the customize button is grayed out, and this can happen for one of two reasons. First, it can happen when you haven't yet verified the required community profile information. Different types of collateral require different verifications. For a refresher on how to verify your community data, please refer to the previous E&O Portal webinar that took place on May 20th. It can also occur if the user has a viewer role for their community. Viewers do not have access to edit dynamic templates, meaning they cannot use the template editor. Now that your data is verified, let's get started. This is what your homepage looks like when you log into the portal. Now, to customize your educational materials, you will first click the Educational Materials tab in the menu bar. If you have not yet requested access to your community, the Educational Materials page will be disabled. Here you can see all of the different materials that are available. As you know, we are working on making all the dynamic templates available in the template editor within the portal from now until June 16th. Today, the USCL Recycling Guide is available to edit, so we will start with that first. To use the template editor within the portal, click the Customize button. When clicked, you will be taken to the template editor page, which will give you a preview of that educational materials template. The first step in editing the template is selecting the community, which you can see here. I only have access to one community in Oregon currently. However, if you are a service provider for multiple communities, you would want to select that drop-down arrow there and select the community you want to edit a template for. Remember that you can request access to more communities in the Your Communities page available in the sidebar menu. The next step would be to select the program you would like to create the template for. You can see it is automatically selected for single-family curbside. But if I select the drop-down arrow, the City of Portland also has a verified drop-off program. So I can select that to create a USCL guide for the drop-off program, which you can see the template did edit in real time. I'm going to go back into single-family curbside just for the sake of this demo. Once you've selected the community, you have the option to rename your project. The default name is the name of the collateral, which you can leave or customize. Here I'm changing the name to include the name of the city, City of Portland USCL Recycling Guide. However, this is just a suggestion and the naming conventions are entirely up to the local government or service providers. Next, you can fill in the description box. This is entirely again up to the local governments and service providers. We recommend using this as a place to provide more detailed information, which could include date, creator name, or anything else that can help differentiate the project. The next step is to select the language you would like to preview the template in. The templates are automatically loaded in English. To select another language, you'll scroll down and click the drop-down arrow to see all of the available languages. You can see that Hindi and Arabic are unavailable, and that is due to some final transcreation assessment. They will be available soon. Once you select the language you'd like to preview, for instance, Spanish, the portal will load the template in that language, as you can see happening here. From there, you can edit as needed. One thing to note is that as you are making edits to the template, it is changing it in all languages. For instance, if I'm editing the template in English, when I go to save it and later download for print, those same updates will be reflected in Chinese, Spanish, etc. So you're not required to create and customize a separate template for each language. We will discuss downloading the finished content later on in the webinar. Next, we'll go over all of the fields that are customizable. For example, if your program does not accept glass, you can switch this toggle off and see the document update in real time. You can also edit the metal section. Here we see the standard designation, which includes aluminum, steel cans, and scrap metal. The alternative metal option expands the accepted list to include foil, empty aerosols, and empty paint cans. The next step would be to adjust the no icons. There are 12 no icons available, and you can display up to 5 at a time. These should reflect the top contaminants in your community. If you are unsure of what those are, you can reach out to CAA for guidance. For today, I'll change all of them so you can see how the updates appear in real time. All right, after adjusting the no icons, you can update the website's URL and phone number. I've added a placeholder website for Portland and a placeholder phone number for this demo. Lastly, you can upload your community's logo by clicking here. You can either drag and drop a file or click here to browse your files. Be sure to use the highest resolution logo available to avoid pixelation when printed. Guidelines for uploading logos are available in the FAQ. Once uploaded, the template will automatically update and you can see your logo change here. If you are in the logo upload section and you need to return to the main editor for any reason, you can click that back button there and it'll take you back. And we are currently working to make that button a little more visible for you all. Okay, now I want to revisit the dynamic template and just highlight some of the elements that are not going to be customizable to ensure everyone is clear on what is locked in and why. So each template is going to be a little bit different, but in general, you can customize the following: website, phone number, logo, the glass toggle, either on or off, the standard or alternative metal options, and the no icons. As we just walked through, these fields are designed to reflect your community situations. However, some elements like the material icon image sets and subtext are not customizable. This likely isn't a surprise, as TRP and CAA have been working closely with you over the past year to develop and gather your feedback and develop it into these education and outreach materials. The reason we don't make every section customizable is to maintain consistency across communities and ensure compliance with best practices. If you have any questions about what can or cannot be customized, please drop them into the Q&A and our team or Alex will be happy to help. All right, we've edited our first dynamic template. Now let's review how you can save and download it. Once your design is complete, click Save and Close, which is located in the upper right-hand corner or the lower left-hand corner of the screen. This will create a version of the USCL guide with your customizations in every language under the Your Project section of the educational materials page. I'll show you next how to download the template in the additional languages. After saving your project, it will be stored in the language you originally created it in. Once saved, you can download the project in any of the available languages from the main educational materials page under Your Projects. To download the material, click the green download button. A menu will appear where you can choose either all languages or a specific language. Please note that you can only select one language at a time. For this demonstration, I will select English. And then you will see the file begin to download to my computer. These are very large files, so sometimes it may take a minute to download. Once the file is downloaded, it will open up as a PDF, which you can see here. Then I will return to the portal and I'll download the file in Spanish just so you can all see how that works. Again, these are very large files with very high quality images, so the download time does take a minute. So when you're in the portal doing this, if it does take some time, don't be concerned. It's just because of the large file size. Here again, you'll see that opens up into a PDF and you can see it is in Spanish. Again, sometimes the images just take a minute to load because of the size of the file. There you can see everything's coming in. And then if we go back into the portal, you'll notice that a check mark has been placed next to the languages that have been already downloaded. The Your Project section is where any customized dynamic templates will be stored. Projects will be stored there indefinitely, and there is not a limit to the number of projects that you can save here. In addition to downloading your customized materials in multiple languages, you can also edit, duplicate, or delete any of your projects. If you notice any of these buttons are grayed out, it is based on your permissions. If you believe you have the incorrect permissions, please reach out to your community owner. As a reminder, you do not need to create a separate project for each language. Simply customize the template once and then download it in the required languages. To edit a project that you have already customized, click on the pencil icon of that project under the Your Project section as shown here. The template will then open back up. If you make any changes, the Close button will change to Save and Close. Clicking this will save any changes you've made to the existing project. You can also discard any changes that you've made. After clicking this button, you will receive a pop-up alerting that any changes you have made will not be saved upon clicking Discard Changes. After hitting Save and Close, you'll be taken back to the Educational Materials page where you can download your project in any of the available languages as we previously discussed. To duplicate a project, click on the plus box icon. Duplicating a project can be helpful if you are a service provider for 10 communities and you want to make a slightly different project for each. For instance, perhaps 5 of the programs collect glass, but 5 of them do not. Clicking the duplicate button will duplicate the project and you will see both the original and the duplicate under the Your Project section. Then to delete a project, you will click on the trash can icon. Only community owners and the project creator can delete projects. Before a project is deleted, a confirmation box will appear on your screen as shown here. This message is designed to ensure that you truly intend to delete the project. All right, now I'm going to pass it back to Alex, who will explain how the printing materials process with CAA will work.
Thank you, Taylor. And let's go to the next slide there. The current process for getting E&O materials printed by CA just takes 3 steps. The first one, Taylor just went over, which is logging in to the E&O portal, finding and editing the materials that you need. And for communities that are launching first, just as a reminder, before all of the materials are editable there within the portal, all of the dynamic features are up and running. If you need help getting any of those materials created, please reach out to our team here and we can help you get those done. The second step is once you've customized your materials, just download them, just like Taylor showed. It's that simple. And then lastly, send an email with the attached files to oregon.recycleon@circularaction.org. And make sure to include your name, organization, phone number, where you'd like the materials to be delivered to, your ideal date that you need these by, and the number of items you want for each material. I'll drop that email there in the chat. And if you didn't remember all of those bits and pieces, we have them in the FAQ on the E&O portal as well. Once CAA receives your emailed request, we will review the materials to look for any issues, make sure that you wanted to make the edits that you made. We'll check for things like websites and phone numbers and making sure that the materials that are shown are the ones that you'll be collecting as we understand them. We'll confirm the quantity requests are in line with the printing guidelines, which are also on the portal. It's based off population or household numbers. And then CA will send that request to the printer. We'll let you know when that happens. The printer that we're using is called Imagine. They will print the materials and ship them directly to the address that you requested that the order be sent to. We do request that you review those materials pretty quickly after you get them, so in case there are any issues, you can let us know within 3 business days so that we can address it quickly to keep things moving forward. This next slide is going to talk about communities that are choosing to create E&O collateral themselves. So an example that I typically use is if you have a trifold brochure that has garbage, recycling, and composting information on it, and you wanted to create the recycling section and have CAA cover the associated costs. There's a whole breakdown of the requirements and the minimum standards within the E&O portal and the FAQ section with all of that printing information as well. So you can go through there and see all of the information. Do make sure to reach out to myself and my team so that we can pre-approve those materials in case you have questions. Some of the things that are required would be using the CAA provided material graphics, including that Recycle on Oregon logo. And then there's several other items there. So take a look at those. And if you are planning on doing those, please reach out beforehand. Taylor, I'll turn it back to you.
All right, thank you, Alex. We've now made it through the bulk of today's content, how to access and edit dynamic templates. We are going to be reviewing how to navigate to the FAQ page and how end user support will work next. As a reminder, if you're having any questions, you're welcome to use the Q&A function as we go along, and we should have plenty of time at the end for questions as well. To navigate to the Frequently Asked Questions page, click on the FAQ located at the bottom of the menu bar on the left-hand side of your browser. This page was developed by the partnership with the help of CAA and includes questions and answers such as what is Recycle on Oregon, what is the Education and Outreach Portal, how do I customize materials, and how do I contact support if needed. If you need to contact support, please email oregon.recycleon@circularaction.org. And then Lydia will drop that email again in the chat for easy access. In your email, you'll want to include your name, the name of your community, a summary of the issue or question, any screenshots or attachments to provide additional context if needed. And CAA will escalate this issue to the partnership if unable to resolve. Again, this information is also located on the FAQ page, so don't worry about trying to remember these details. If you're experiencing any issues when in the portal, just navigate to that FAQ page for end user support. We've covered a lot today. We've reviewed what the E&O portal is and how it ties into the educational materials we've been working on, explored the educational materials, including navigating to them, how to customize those dynamic templates in the portal, reviewing the project section, and discussed CAA's printing process. And lastly, reviewed the FAQ and end user support. Now let's go over some final next steps to ensure you're prepared to take full advantage of the E&O portal. Here's a look at the E&O rollout schedule for the portal. Let's take a look at where we are, how we got here, and what's coming up next. The portal officially launched on May 16th, and we hosted our first webinar on accessing the E&O portal on May 20th. Today, we are excited to have hosted the second webinar focused on customizing dynamic templates. Next up, mark your calendars for June 16th when all of the dynamic templates will be available within the portal. Finally, the RMA implementation kicks off on July 1st, just less than a month away, when communities will begin accepting the USCL. That wraps up all of our content for today. For the next steps, if you don't yet have an account, please create one and request access to your community, then review and verify your community profile information and start exploring the educational materials. Don't forget to check back into the portal as more dynamic templates will become live, with all of those templates being available by June 16th. If you have any questions, please reach out to CAA and their email is on the next slide. Thank you all so much for joining us today.
Excellent.
All right.
Thanks, Taylor.
Can stop sharing if we want to move into some Q&A.
Yeah, so as a reminder, folks, you can use the Q&A tab or the functionality there at the bottom to submit questions. I do just want to point out we've gotten a few questions, and I'll point those out so folks have the answers while others are thinking of some things. So one of the questions is, can a community owner provide access to the portal for someone else, or do they need to create an account? So community owners, they can approve requests, but the user would still need to create that actual account on their own. So once they create that account, you as the owner of that community would be able to see that and approve or deny that. There was a few questions about the turnaround time on printing of materials. As you know, we are all still learning on this together. So we aren't exactly sure yet, and it depends on a few things. So how many materials you're ordering, how many other orders have come in that same time frame, or kind of where in the queue you are, and then shipping speed. And we don't really have control of how fast things can ship to you. So depending on where you are, if you know things might take a little longer to ship to you, kind of plan that in your timeframes. But we recommend at least 2 weeks to get orders in. So for some of those early communities that are switching over, we hope to see some print orders coming in soon. Lastly, there was a question about what logos are required on materials, and it's just the Recycle on Oregon logo that is required. The TRP logo that was shown was just for example purposes today, so that's not required on there. Let's see, there's a question about who should be a community owner, and that is a really good question. It's kind of up to the community on how they want to do that. Right now, we're starting with the local governments being the community owners and creating service providers as editors right now. Local governments or the owners can upgrade those folks to owners if they would like. We're just starting out at that baseline as a way to get things started so that there's a little structure to that. But we are, when we provide that information back to you, copying the local governments if you're a service provider so you all can work together. It kind of all depends on how you do your ordering and where materials come from because only owners in the portal can order materials from CAA. We just wanted to create some structure there to get started. But if you are a service provider who does indeed order materials, maybe you can work with your local government to become an owner there as well. All right, this next question might go to Lydia, and it says, I'm showing the customize option as grayed out still for the USCL. When will I actually be able to customize it? That's a great question.
Yeah, that is a good question. We probably should have covered that. Sorry. So hi, Corey. I just looked and it looks like you have access to a number of communities. So that's the great first step. As a reminder, you have to create an account, request access to the number of communities that you oversee. And then the third step is actually verifying that community profile data. And once you verify the required data for the USCL, it's either single family or drop off, that customized button will become available. Corey, you're one of the people that I notice you have a number of communities. So we mentioned this at the top, but if you have more than 10, it can be a lot to verify or update. So if you need support with that, we have some templates to help you bulk upload that information. So that's the next step, is just verifying that community profile information for those communities, and then you'll see that button enabled.
Excellent. Thank you, Lydia. There is a question about, do you need to have InDesign to be able to edit materials? If you're working within the E&O portal, you don't need InDesign. We have provided the InDesign files as well so that folks can download those materials and edit them if they prefer to do it that way. If you don't currently have InDesign and you need some files early on before June 16th, when they're all editable within the portal, reach out to my team. That's the oregon.recycleon@circularaction.org email address, and we can work with you. We do have InDesign, we have access to that, and we can help you get those edits taken care of before they're available in the portal. Let's see. There's a question about, so I believe this is what the question is asking, but if you use a mailing service, so CA doesn't cover the cost of mailing the materials, but if you're using a mailing service that's maybe located someplace else, or your hauler uses a billing service, so maybe you want to include some of those billing inserts, and that's in a different state, we can ship there. Just let us know where that is going when you make that order, and we can ship that to where it needs to be done. Let's see. Another question. Can our jurisdiction print on the reverse side of single-sided RMA materials without pre-approval? Like adding backyard composting or garbage or anything else that you want to add there. There's not a lot of single-sided materials. The only one I can think of is the recycling guide and maybe the posters. So you could, CA would not cover the cost of that printing for non-USCL educational materials on the backside of there. So reach out to us and we can have that conversation about what's covered and what's not. Another question, is there an option to print a small number of items ourselves on a standard printer? We're such a small area that sending most things out to a printer wouldn't make sense for us. Yeah, I mean, if that's something you want to do, we need to work through. I mean, if you're looking to request reimbursement from CAA, how you'd want to do that. But we could also look at other options if you just have a smaller print run. For some of the items, we can bulk them together with other materials. So decals, for example, don't have dynamic features on them, I believe. And so if you were making some of those, we could order those along with another communities and send those your way. So again, for some of these kind of different items or questions that you might have, feel free to reach out to us. That's that oregon.recycleon@circularaction.org. We've already started working with a few communities already to get questions answered. So we try to get back to you pretty quickly on those. I do want to just let folks know that the Oregon comms team will be out of the office tomorrow working on some of those statewide ads. So you won't get a response if you email us tomorrow after this webinar for that information, but we typically reply as within a day or so. All right. I am not seeing any other questions, so hopefully that means that folks are understanding how this works. Again, the best way to get started, get into the E&O portal, get registered, make sure that your community is updated, update that information there so you can customize those materials. It's pretty cool to go in and play around with that customization and see the things just pop around like Taylor showed us. One more question came in. The profile setup requires a lot of information about our program. Most of this has already been provided. Why is there a duplication of efforts? I will take some of that, and then Lydia or Kevin, if you want to add more to that. Dave, we are planning on using some of this information within some education and outreach materials to hopefully provide folks with easier access to finding information. So if we can get it within the portal here, That's super helpful. This information also feeds into TRP's national database, which runs some other things on the back end to help communities find information. So the more information that we can get out there, and that's correct because it's coming straight from the community, the better. But Lydia or Kevin, did you want to add any more to that one?
Sure, I can add to that. Yeah, so like Alex mentioned, the data sort of flows through a number of different channels. One thing about that community profile information, Taylor mentioned this earlier, but it is populated from our national database, which is sourced from that 2022 American Community Survey. It's the US Census. We also use a number of research tools and staff to find information from local websites and pull that in there as well. So a lot of that information should be up to date. Hopefully you don't have to make huge changes. If you do, again, please reach out to us. We can help you edit that information more quickly.
And that leads perfectly into our next question about can folks use the PSU population research study estimates for population instead of the ones in the portal? So there's kind of a few different things there. The PSU Population Research Center population estimates are used to determine households and the $3 per capita contamination reduction fee. Those are kind of separate from these E&O materials and what's in the portal. So um, we'll keep those separate for now. But if you have kind of further questions on which numbers you should be using, feel free to reach out to us and we're happy to help you navigate which ones are there, especially if you're seeing large swings in your population over the last few years. So yeah, reach out with any questions there. And yeah, Lydia.
Sorry, just one thing on that as well. In that, you'll notice in the portal, there's a portion that pulls from the census data that there is a button there that says report an issue. So if you're noticing something that just seems wildly inaccurate, that would be another case. That button does create an email to us, but definitely we would then loop in, CA or however that works. So reach out to either of us, but there's some things we can discuss there as well. So just wanted to call attention to that.
Perfect. Great call out. All right, not seeing any other questions coming in. I do want to remind folks one more time about the primary funding agreement. I know it's not necessarily related to E&O materials, but it's very important and we're coming up on some deadlines for needing that. So the sooner you can get that in, the better. There's more information on circularactionalliance.org/Oregon about downloading that, getting it submitted and all of that. We want to make sure that you are receiving your funding and reimbursement and access to all of the other portals that we're developing. So if you would make sure that your team is on that, it's on their radar and they're getting it submitted as soon as possible, that would be great. Not seeing any other questions. Thank you, Taylor, and Lydia, and Kevin, and the whole TRP team for the work that they did to create the E&O portal and keep it running and doing constant updates even in the last few weeks. It's gotten even better. So, and thanks to all of you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing those orders for print materials come in. Again, reach out with any questions. Have a good rest of your week. Thanks, everybody.
Hi, thanks everyone.